everyone. I'm Tish Conlon for another episode of Tish Talk. Today, a lot of you are really excited for this particular guest, Amandha Vollmer. She has been a powerhouse of courage and absolutely loaded with insights into what's happening and how we can heal ourselves. Many of you know her from her book, Healing with DMSO. But for those of you who don't, Dr. Amandha Vollmer graduated from University of Lethbridge, Alberta, with a Bachelor of Science in Agriculture Biotechnology. And then later on, she graduated from Canadian College of Naturopathic Medicine. I have found her videos to be absolutely incredible. I'm so glad she's here in Canada looking after people, and she's got some deep insights into how we can heal naturally. Some controversial views from some that are different from some of the mainstream doctors about certain things like ivermectin and fenbendazole, some of the anti-parasitic formulas that are being used. And she has lots of incredible things to say about how we can heal with natural medicine. So for those of you who don't subscribe to her newsletter or are part of your community, she'll talk about that as well. Yumnaturals.store. She's got incredible courses that she's going to outline how we can heal ourselves and reclaim our health sovereignty, as well as maybe help with the fight to get back an integrated medicine model. So welcome, Amandha. How are you today?
Hi, Tish. Thank you. I'm great. Thanks for having me, and I'm glad to be here and to share some great resources with people today.
Oh, I'm absolutely thrilled. And you know, you have never shied away from anything, which I love. And you have that deep knowledge base. You've worked with so many people to help them, you know, heal themselves and use natural supplements, natural medicine to heal. So I wanted to start off by talking about one controversial subject, and that's parasites. You know, I have tiptoed into holistic health. I've learned about frequency and energy medicine, which I love to talk about as well. But one of the first things that came to me in my COVID wake up was that we seem to be riddled with parasites. And then a lot of the mainstream doctors have been talking about ivermectin as the cure for COVID. And Dr. Lee Merritt, who I do really respect, talked about also a protocol to get rid of all of these parasites that they are putting in our food, because, you know, they're attacking us on so many fronts. And she recommended fenbendazole because it does cross the blood-brain barrier. So let's tackle your opinion on some of these types of medicines to reduce parasitic and, you know, assault on our bodies, and maybe the whole concept of what a parasite does. Maybe they're something different from your standpoint.
Yeah, well, a lot of people, you know, on the way they think about parasites is that even the word is meaning that it's sucking off of you, or it's taking from you or stealing from you. And therefore they're bad, and therefore you must get rid of them. But why would we find parasites in nature? Or really, you know, this is getting into like germ theory discussion and terrain, right? Any of the microbes that we blame for things, why are they there at all? Well, these are our scavengers. These are things in life that come and break down wastes and help bring them down to a next metabolic level so that they can be remade later from their elemental into new forms. And so this is the cycle of life, right? It's born, you live, you grow, and then things break down and die and have to go back into the soil. And so when we think about a parasite, we've been really trained to, you know, judge that it's bad. And why is it bad? Well, people get symptoms. They're seeing symptoms in their bodies and they know that something's going on. But again, people are judging symptoms as bad, not as a procedure in the body or a process or a normal natural function of the body to actually rebalance itself. So there's like a sea change that needs to happen around the thinking regarding what is going on inside the body when we have these expressions, and why do we have parasites at all? And why is it now a problem? I mean, is this something we talked about 100 years ago? Or people like, oh, those darn parasites, you know, I better go to the chemist and get like, no, they didn't give a shit about it because there wasn't a problem, because now there's a problem. What's the problem? What do we see in our world today? We see pollution. We see metals in everything. I mean, literally, there's nobody looking out for us. People think the EPA and the WHO and all of these alphabet corporations are somehow protecting us or care for us or whatever, couldn't be further from the truth. It's exactly 180 degrees opposite. They are there to keep us suppressed, to keep us as a business model, and to filter us through their pharma drug, cartel regime, and make as much profit on them as possible. They're actually the real parasite. They're the ones that feed off of us. They're the actual problem that keep us polluted, and all of these critters there because you basically set up a buffet for them to eat. and then we go and we blame these microorganisms for showing up on the scene and just doing their jobs, and we want to kill them. And so the other thing that's important for people to understand before I get into more details on that is that the enemy, the way that they have formulated things, they play both sides. Okay. So they know there's a lot of us that have figured out that vaccines are harmful, and not just from COVID, way before. Okay. Like, yes. I've been outspoken against every single vaccine being fraud for eternity. So, wow. I was vaccine damaged. My family was vaccine damaged. All I see in my chair are vaccine damaged cases. And in fact, if no one ever took a vaccine, they'd probably never be sick, because it all pairs back to what happened to them in childhood that sets up their metabolism and their terrain to be a mess from the get-go. And that keeps a customer for life. So this is like a glorified business model and control grid system, and we've fallen into it. So if you don't know that yet, you're going to fall for every marketing scheme there is, including the double cross. So I talk a lot about the double cross. So because we are aware that vaccines are not good things, that are dangerous and killers, we're not falling. So we're like, well, we're not doing that. So, but I got sick, or I'm sick, or I have an issue, or I have a parasite, or I have a whatever. And so they have a secondary for those people. And that's the ivermectin, fenbendazole. So there's the hardcore drugs, the hardcore suppressives, then I call them the softcore drugs, the methylene blue and this kind of stuff. So they're softcore drugs. And those are there to capture those of us who are wise enough to not take the shots, but still go down that road of anti-fertility. A lot of people don't realize that these drugs they're taking are fertility killers. And yeah, if you're in your 50s and 60s, you're not having babies anymore, and that's, the risk you want to take with it, fine. But you don't also know what the other damage is being done to your genetics, to your higher mind, to your frequency, when you take their drugs that are killing the things in your body that are there to get rid of the wastes. Now, yes, you have symptoms, and sometimes you have to control those symptoms in an emergency way. I totally get that. Someone's overrun and you need to suppress. I'm not calling out the need for, suppressants. There's a time and a place for suppressants. I'm not 100% saying throw it all out. But Bill Gates gave Africa ivermectin for free. Okay. So if Bill Gates gave Africa ivermectin for free, knowing that they have anti-fertility aspects, what do you think's going on there? So we can't fall for the double cross. We have to be wiser than that. There's more than two options here for dealing with these things. And what's happening in the body is overridden with toxicity, and mainly metals and plastic residues, which is why we're seeing an increase in parasites. So just killing them when they're eating the waste means that all those wastes are going to spill back into your body again and cause, that issue or metabolic problem there. I've had a lot of people come to me having taken these things that are a mess. Their organ systems, their kidneys are depleted. They have skin problems they can't get rid of. And some have even died or gotten into hospital situations from taking these drugs.
Wow. So yeah. Can I just reiterate for the audience, because a lot of people are kind of in shock, because it was like, thank God for ivermectin and fenbendazole. And I have had this conversation with a number of people, because it is incredibly confusing. And if you're not as savvy as you are, you're just trying to glom on to whatever you can. It's almost like a little bit of hope. So I wanted to clarify. So you're saying our bodies have always been full of parasites. 100 years ago, 500 years ago, a million years ago, whatever time frame, we have had parasites in our bodies. We've been able to live. They're there for a reason, is what you're saying. I'm just trying to kind of make a synopsis. And what they're doing is they're helping us with the root cause of a lot of problems, which is this pollution, this heavy metal toxicity. So are you saying that we really should be attacking the heavy metal toxicity first, and then the parasite problem will resolve as well?
Well, I'm saying I don't think we ever had a parasite issue really to the level that we have now because of the level of toxicity that we're experiencing, because they're literally putting it in every product, like air, food, water. I mean, you paint your toenails and you dye your hair, you've just given yourself heavy metals, right? A lot of the food is malnourished, meaning we're not getting the nutrition to actually, our bodies get rid of these things naturally. But if you're depleted, you're not. And so you're storing and building those things up. And so that's where the parasites come in to do the job. And it could be all kinds of different admixtures, like usually inside of tumors and other growths, you'll find like a whole cacophony of different microorganisms involved, because there is a cultural sort of party happening in there to work on the secondary metabolites as well to try to get them out of the body. So if you didn't poison your body, you wouldn't have parasites. Okay. So
Right.
they're only found when there's a toxic soup for them to
Right.
live in. Yeah.
So we've got more parasites because we got more toxicity, and a lot of the toxicity surrounds heavy metals, which we're being inundated with chemtrails, our food, and the shots, and etc. So attacking the heavy metal issue, I mean, a lot of people know a few things like cilantro, sweating, infrared sauna. What else would you suggest on this whole issue of the toxicity with the heavy metals to then naturally resolve the parasite issue?
Yeah. Well, I designed a course specifically for this.
Awesome.
And the most important thing to do before you just start going after metals is to prepare the emunctories, which are all the elimination routes in the body. So people get into all these detoxes, they dive in, but they never prepare the organ system so that they can handle the upsurge of waste that are going to now be funneled through those organs. And then they get into trouble. They get into secondary problems and symptoms that they don't like. So it's really about education, being informed about your body, which is, what I do. I'm here to teach about their bodies, empower them to be their own doctors, and to learn properly what symptoms are and what they're not, and to sort of throw out the germ theory ideology, and also make really intuitive decisions. I'm sure there are people who will say, "Oh, well, I had cancer. I took ivermectin and it went away," and all these kinds of things. Well, yeah, that's because the toxicity was sitting in those tissues and you had the parasites, working on that. Now you just got rid of the parasites. Now you don't have the parasite, issue. So you don't have those symptoms, but where did those toxins go? And where did they go in the body? Right. And then we also have like the placebo effect on top of it, which, sometimes I'm like, oh, just let them believe it. I'd
Yes,
rather,
yes,
just let them go with it, because, they'll lose 10 years of their life, but they wouldn't know the difference, or or they
yes,
might lose some intelligence quotient, but, they wouldn't know the difference, like, this sort of
yes,
thing. Right. So,
yes,
or they might not ascend, like, meaning they might not get their enlightenment or whatever because
yes,
of it. But again, like, I'm here for those who are ready to hear it. And I really don't want to
yes.
dissuade people if they feel inside of themselves that that's the route for them, because sometimes you have to take a Motrin because you have a migraine. Like, I totally understand the uses and the benefits that, or the decisions that you have to make, which are complex, right?
Yes, and it's a good point because I just finished quantum healing. And it was interesting. It talked about what you were referring to, the placebo effect in people's belief systems. And when you can program your mind that you're going to get well, or kind of even in a way deceive yourself, people go through this sort of these spontaneous kind of miraculous healing. So it's hard as a doctor to really, if someone's going in that direction and it's helping them, then this placebo effect can be so powerful. So, I mean, that's really interesting. And we will talk about your courses, because I see a few that I would love to take, and I think the audience would too later. But, we're talking about now healing the environmental toxicity, which is probably peak, I think, of all time on Earth. I mean, I can't imagine it having been worse than it is now. So detox needs to be a way of life, but it's so interesting that you say you can't just detox if your detox pathways are all clogged up. What's good on your organs aren't able to then get rid of everything. So is there anything you could recommend to prepare your organs? Just, I know we can take a deeper dive, but anything, you know, I even say lemons are very good, little light liver detox, anything that's natural as a simple tip for someone to take away, to get them kind of excited about taking a deeper dive.
Well, I mean, the first thing is always going to be lifestyle. So like, what are you eating, drinking? Are you exercising? Are you breathing? You know, you have to always check those first major things that are like your daily habits. Those have to always be looked at. And I know a lot of people don't want to look at it because it means they have to change, and we're change resistors and we like our stable lifestyles and stuff. But, you know, you have to question that. I like rotational diets, changing up your food, making sure you're getting a good spread of all kinds of minerals and vitamins from the food as much as possible, getting sunlight, grounding, you know, doing different breath work, making sure you're sweating every day, making sure you're working your muscles in your body, making sure you're getting sleep and going to bed so your circadian rhythm is functioning for you. I mean, you can't even heal the brain if you don't go to bed by like 9:30. I mean, there's no, after 9:30 and past like 1 o'clock, you're not even healing most of your brain and all of the,
Really?
yeah, you cleanse in the earlier part of your brain, cleanses in the earlier part of the night. So if you're like always going to bed 1, 2 o'clock, you're like setting your sails for Alzheimer's later in life, right? Or Parkinson's or something like that.
Wow,
So
that's huge for all the teenagers, including my own kids. Yeah, trying to get them back to an earlier to bedtime. Are you a fan of intermittent fasting and time restricted eating? I do that regularly myself.
yeah, I definitely am. I do it often as well. I tend to be the type that like once you know your body, which will change over time, you know how you're eating, what works for you. What works for me is one solid meal a day and a little bit of nourishment, sort of like mid-morning, afternoon. That's when my digestive fire comes up. I feel hungry. I'm listening. I want to eat maybe a salad or something really, you know, just fresh and nourishing like that, or something with fruit, like a smoothie, something where I could pack in a bunch of nutrients in one go, and then not eat, you know, too late at night before bed if I can. But sometimes I do feel hungry at night and I will eat something nourishing, which tells me, okay, at night, my body does want that nutrition for some reason, even though, you know, you ideally don't want to digest when you're sleeping because everything else is going on. But again, our bodies are brilliant. So, you know, we want to listen to our signals once we get kind of on the right path. But intermittent fasting can be great. You just have to know what you're doing when you're doing really long-term fasting, because the refeeding portion can be challenging. And if you're a female, you should learn about fasting and your hormones, because there is a difference. We're not men, we're women. We cycle with the moon, not the sun. We have, you know, different needs, and we should learn about our cycles so that we understand better.
Wow.
I like,
Yeah.
I don't know if you know Dr. Mindy Pelz, Pelz. There's a video you can watch, Why Fasting for Women is Different and How to Do It Correctly. So I suggest that if you're, you know, more interested in learning like the different fitness protocols and the different hormone cycles for fasting.
Wow. Interesting. And do you believe in the blood type diets, or that there is a difference in the way we kind of our relationship with food based on our blood type? Is that something you are, you know, supportive of, or do you think it's kind of there's not enough substance to it?
Well, I don't really believe in anything. What I do is I time test it, right? And so I learned about the blood type diet back in naturopathic college. This was probably around 2005. And being a type A, and at the time I was vegan, I thought that it like validated for me what I wanted to hear, which ended up not being true because what I learned later is we don't just have 4 blood types. We actually have like hundreds of different varieties of blood types. And so it's an interesting theory. I congratulate someone for thinking in that way and for kind of formulating something that someone can work with constructively. And I'm sure it helped a lot of people to just get to whatever that stage was. It helped me get to whatever stage I needed to get to. But after dismantling it quite a bit, I think there's more to it. It would have to be proven scientifically, which that hasn't been done, of course.
Yes.
And it would have to also include the new information that keeps coming as we are continually inundated with like more and more and more as we're waking up, right? Like
Yes.
where this all lines up is just, I didn't see it with the blood type. Blood type diet was like a stage of our
Yes,
knowledge, I
I
think.
get it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Interesting. So for those who, and this is like we're all learning at different phases. So you say in each human being there are multiple blood types. Is that what you're saying?
There are like, if you have a type A blood type, right? What type
That's
of type
me
A?
too. Oh, right.
Type A, and also the blood type can change, and people don't realize that. They think it just can be the same thing. So like I had a blood type A negative, and then I got pregnant and I had a miscarriage, and after my miscarriage I was A positive. So my blood type changed through that process, so that I realized there's a flexibility there, there's an adaptation that we haven't really looked at properly. So I don't have all the
Wow.
ins and outs of it, but it was enough for me to know that, and not just me, like I'd put that out there and said, has anyone ever had this happen to them too? And yes, 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 which means that like the whole idea of the suppression of like when you have a miscarriage, you have to go and get the drug to like make sure the whole idea of like miscarrying later is false. It's just we actually have a mechanism and adaptation in case of blood mixing. And maybe in those people, it's not working because they were vaccinated and damaged or whatever. But that doesn't
Wow.
mean, this is what I'm saying. Like once you meddle with the system, you've
Yeah.
broken things. Now you're always meddling and tinkering and creating these new inventions that were never needed at all if you just didn't tinker with the system at all.
Wow. That's huge. I never knew that. That's fascinating. And so this whole positive, negative, people can shift. Is what you're saying. It's quite fluid. And is there a difference from a diet perspective between an A and a plus and a minus, sort of RH plus minus from your perspective, if you're one or the other, or electromagnetically as a human being? Because I've read on that as well, that there is a kind of a different way you interpret the signals of the world.
Yeah, well, our blood is alive and it's pleomorphically so, where the membrane creates our organisms, our microorganisms called somatids. And so the blood is actually living and creates these new creatures when we need them. And so just the fact that we don't even understand blood, we don't even understand water, right? I mean, blood and water are interconnected. The Bagelson brothers have been doing some amazing work, sort of leading from their father's lineage, Harvey. And they have written about holographic blood, where they can take a slide of blood and look in their system and see a holographic image informing you exactly what's happening inside the body. So like they have pictures, for example, of someone who broke their femur or broke their tibia or something, and inside the holographic picture is like a broken femur, exactly the way that it's broken. So we don't even need imaging and this sort of thing. The imaging is right inside of our blood and we can
Wow.
see that. So
Yeah.
there's a lot
So
of answers there.
wow. I mean, this is like hard for a lot of, I was going to say normies, but a lot of people to take in, and it's all poison, x-rays, and all these technologies are just harming our body. So like this whole concept of viruses, let's tackle this, another big one. I know I've interviewed Dr. Robert O. Young several times, and he's very adamant that viruses are not real. They don't exist. He just wrote a paper talking about, and you'd know a lot more about this, bacterial phages and this pleomorphism. And he's just how this whole virus, this germ versus terrain theory, this whole concept of the germ, right, the virus, was really invented. And back, at the beginning of last century, and has no real scientific foundation. Can you comment on that as well, relative to this COVID virus that's never been identified either, and all these other so-called viruses that have
Right.
plagued
So
humanity?
yeah, so there are zero viruses. There are no such things in existence. That was manufactured based on an idea of poison and a political ideology. Louis Pasteur was like buddy buddy with the king. They wanted to scare, the enemy, and thinking there was like some sort of airborne pathogen, so they wouldn't land and refuel and get food. So it was really like a war tactic originally, where the idea came from. So people don't know their history, mainly because it's suppressed and the internet's being destroyed. So it's really hard to find it, even more so now. Like I woke up to the virus lie back in about 2016. I had just put two and two together. Like my friend had just gone for a biofeedback sort of, episode. And I'm like, how do you have HIV? So they found HIV, they found Ebola in his body, like they found all of these weird things. And I'm like, what? This makes no sense. Like, how can you have all these things in your body all of a sudden? Like, and why people just get one virus when there's like thousands of them? And I'm like, something's not lining up here. And then I remembered my pleomorphic isopathy studies. And I went, okay, so how did these two blend? Because the terrain changing the microbial milieu in the body versus, the microbe attacking and coming in and doing something to you. Like this one doesn't hold up.
Yes.
Wartime tactic. This sounds like my immunology book that also is full of crap and all wartime analogies. Again, the whole idea of immunology is false as well, because it bleeds off of the same false thinking that we're being attacked all the time and that we have to create defenses, that the external is our enemy and that we have to stay a certain way. In fact, we're one with the external. Things flow. It's just that, like, when children are experienced with their world, they taste everything, they need everything inside their body because their body wants to know what the world is. And then at some point it decides, okay, now we know what self is and what not self is, and we'll make sure that self stays self and not self we get rid of, and we have our all kinds of cleansing mechanisms to do so. For example, antibodies are non-specific. So that whole idea of antibodies in the immune system is 100% crap. It's not even describing what's going on. It's really just a cleansing system in action to remove things that aren't supposed to be in the body or in that compartment. So maybe like H. pylori lives in your lungs, but it shouldn't be in your gut. So if you have leaky lungs and it gets into your gut, or you've been coughing and hacking up and swallowing mucus and it got in your gut, and you already have gut deficiency and a gut problem, guess what? You're going to find H. pylori there, and this shouldn't be there. So that's an issue, right? But it's not that it caused anything. It's that you already had the problem in the first place. And now H. pylori just found a happy home in that area, right? So it's just come from ignorance, and also that we've been controlled and manipulated by these lies. And so there's no evidence, you see. We have what's called contagion studies that have been done. And if you really just cut it off at the neck there, all the rest of it falls away, because we can't prove contagion. So how are you supposed to prop up the PCR tests and all the ideas of new diseases and, genetic mutation and evolution of viruses and all this crap? That falls away when you go, oh, well, these things aren't contagious. We can't, like, they've done studies even during the Spanish flu, right? They took sick people, took healthy people, tried to make the sick people make the healthy people sick by swallowing their mucus, by breathing on them, by coughing on them, by doing all these things. No one got sick. They're like, that's weird. You would think if this is a really bad contagion pandemic, that we would have some evidence that this is how it's transmitting. But that is not the case. And not only that, these are computer models. These are ideologies. These are belief systems. And if you actually read Ender's papers, it's hypothesis. It's right. Literal imaginative hypothesis. There's no evidence there. Yes. You're like, oh, this is just fluff. It's a fluff piece,
Yeah. I hear a person, it's like I can just imagine that person who's listening going, I don't buy it. I went to visit my friend, my neighbor, or whatever, insert blank here. They had a horrible cold, and then I came home and I got a cold too within 2 days. These coronaviruses are real. Colds can be transmitted. What do you say to that person? Just because I've even had experience where I was around someone who was sneezing and coughing, and then I got sick. So I'm not going to say it has happened to me. What is that then?
Well, I was around someone who had arthritis in the left knee. And when they told me the story and then they left, I had arthritis in my left knee.
Are you?
I've seen, hundreds and hundreds of patients over the years, right? I've had people come into my office with a breast tumor. When they left, I had pain in my breast. So if you are around someone that's carrying a frequency and you have a harmonic that hits there, then you will be triggered into a cleansing system. We have cleansing mechanisms that are triggered by all kinds of things that we've been so ignorant because we've been so blind by the virology that we think we know the answer. We forget to look that there are other answers. There are other ways to explain why we might get sick en masse. Generally in history, like the Black Plague and all of these sorts of things that we attribute to viruses or bacteria, were all mass poisonings, generally either by air or water, or sometimes food. So you could see that these weren't contagions, they were just being poisoned. And the patsy is the virus. So the corporations that rule over everything, they love the virus stuff. Everything's going to be a virus in the future. Everything's a virus. Everything's genetics or viruses because they want to hide their crimes and they use the germ theory to do so. So when they mass poison you with arsenic and you get symptoms, across populations, epidemiologically speaking, they don't want the culpability and the liability. So they blame it on the virus, which you can't prove and you can't see. And the belief is now stuck in your head. And now you get these stories. I get this all the time. Same thing with vaccines. Well, my, so-and-so had polio, therefore, vaccines save lives. It's like your logic is broken.
Yeah.
A logical sentence or contemplation, right? Like there are other ways that you can have triggers in your body. I hugged a freshly vaccinated woman and I lost my taste and smell for a year. Was she contagious? No, she had a frequency put off of her. The frequency just blew my pheromone system or my vomeronasal system to bits and said, oh, whatever happened to her, we can't have it happen to you. So we're going to protect you from sensing this now. You can't have this, right? And it took a while for me to heal. Actually, the Iteracare one was the only thing that
and I do want one of those very much if I can. We'll talk about that. So you said two powerful things that, some people might pick up on this, is when you're sneezing and coughing, that's not a virus. That's you, maybe your body helping you detoxify symptoms that you have in your body. It actually is a good thing. Sometimes sneezing and all this stuff, you're getting stuff out. Is that what you're saying? It's a detoxification method for something that's for natural process?
Yeah. So what are colds and flus? They're detox. That's it. They're cleansing. That's it. There's no contagion. You didn't catch it. You didn't pick it up from anybody. You're already sick. And thank you, body, for giving me the symptoms, producing the mucus and pushing the mucus through and getting the waste out of my body so I can be alive. Right. And when you're around families, there's interesting, like if we were actually allowed to study any of this, we would find that there's tribal sort of energetics around, like a similarity of genetics. So you always see families kind of go down together, or people who are, harmonized with each other, just sort of like how women will get their cycles together once they're around each other a long time. So you'll see this at work, you'll see it at home, and it's a survival mechanism. Actually, we've lost our instincts completely. We have these things because we used to be nomadic. We used to move through the food. We used to follow the weather, right? We don't do that anymore. So when a trigger comes, like weather, like when all the trees, Tom Cowan says this all the time, when all the trees change color, right, at the same time, are they all getting the contagious virus? Is that why they're changing, dropping? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it's just, yes, we have to think, right? There's other ways to explain why something will happen as a phenomenon. And so that phenomenon of detox will happen usually in the spring, change of seasons, and usually in the autumn, change of seasons. So right now you're going to see more and more people getting sick. That's why first of all, they're vaccinated to high hell. So they're toxic. So it's going to be worse at this. They're going to keep the pandemic thing going as they're trying to ramp it up again, because they're trying to cover their crimes of vaccine deaths and vaccine injuries by saying it's now a new mutated virus. So we're smarter than that. We see through that, but there's no new disease. These are people struggling and now being triggered by the autumn cleanse time, right? That might be ill prepared to go through the cleanse properly and are getting all these symptoms and that sort of thing, and like thinking that they have now a new virus or a strain of a virus. So this is what we're seeing.
Absolutely. And they are ramping up the narrative. You get Biden wearing a mask, And I'm happy. I mean, I'm back on LinkedIn after getting kicked off. I got kicked off YouTube very early on, but
Yeah.
for some reason, LinkedIn is not being censored, touch wood. And you see like this really powerful push around the globe to get the truth out. It's like the second you post, it's being shared all over the place. So I'm really happy about that. But there's a real strong pushback of do not comply. Canada, not so much, unfortunately, but hopefully people will realize within the greater community. And I think everyone has to talk to their friend, neighbor about this. And, you know, as they're pushing for more injections, it's, I mean, because every injection does count. And, you know, this is the next question I want to ask you is everyone's worried about shedding. Like if you can't, if your kids aren't awake and mine aren't, and they're going to school and try to limit the amount they go, you worry about them being shed on. You just can't avoid it. If is so you, according to you, that's it. What is that? What is shedding if it's not a virus? Is it the frequency? Is it just what is it? Can you explain that better than I might be able to?
Right. So there's not really shedding. The idea of a shed would be like, like fur shedding off of a cat, right? Like something's falling off that person and getting onto you and somehow getting into you. And if you like think that through, like I did that, I actually did a video where I tried to suspend my belief and like go in and pretend that this is what happens. And I was like, okay, this produces, if there's a virus and if there's a spike and if there's a glycoprotein, because that's what the spike's made out of, then glycoproteins have to be pushing out of the body or orifice in some way. And then they have to be able to get onto you or in you and be absorbed and like put into the system similarly. But how's that going to do it through the digestive system? Because that's not the right mechanism of action. And so therefore it has to be transdermal, but it doesn't look like it's transdermal. How does like a protein like put meat on your skin and like, is it going in your body? So it
Yeah.
fell apart. So,
Well,
if you do these exercises and go through in your head, it helps because then you're like, oh, that's such malarkey. That's not even how it could work.
Yeah, here's the next thing that someone I met at the Children's Health Defense conference last fall in Knoxville, Tennessee. We snuck across the border. We went across the border legally. No, there wasn't us. Someone else did. But anyways, we were there, met Robert Kennedy Jr. But one lady was there and she said, in terms of this shedding, she said she was at a place where there was a lot of people injected. She saw a blue cloud appear when someone was speaking, came out of their mouth. And then she started developing symptoms. And then I did watch shows that talked about this biosynthetic parasite. And even Dr. Robert O. Young, under high-powered microscopes, has seen these self-assembling nanotech, looks like a creature. So some people are theorizing that they're literally, what it actually is these kind of synthetic nanotech parasites are jumping from one person to another. Can you comment on that, if that's even a possibility, or what you think's going on within the bloodstream of these self-assembling nanotechs, and if that is what's going from one person to another?
Well, I haven't seen any real evidence of that. You can go under a microscope, make all kinds of stuff and make it look like something. But the Bigelsons have done that work and they have a completely different answer than Robert. They think it's just salt crystals, actually, most of it. And a lot of it are just artifacts. And most of it's just fear porn. And I don't believe one lick of it. We are very powerful people. They cannot do that to us. We have free will. What's happening though are electromagnetic frequency triggers, like I said, that's telling your mechanism, that's basically tricking your mechanism into thinking you're poisoned as well. So like you're around someone who, so we have mechanisms of release.
Yeah. I believe that. That's what, because I really have dived into this whole electromagnetic biofield as well. That is that really resonates with me as what's happening, as we're picking up their, do you think we can pick up their low frequencies as well, as people are being drawn down through some of the heavy metal toxicity, and then we're around them and we can kind of pick that up? Or can you clarify that a little bit more for the audience?
Well, we're receptive. So if we're receptive, so if you've studied like energy fields, biofields, chakra systems, like the nadis, which are all the little tubes that connect everything throughout the body, and all the different acupressure, acupuncture lineages and points and things, right? We're electromagnetic, and we're mainly water as well. So water structures in such a certain way. And so we're like, we are receivers. We have, our brain is a capacitor. We're receivers. And so we're all frequency. If you read like Barbara Brennan's Hands of Light, for example, she was a clairvoyant. She could actually see energies coming off of people, even when they were talking. Like, I actually had a clairvoyant moment one time where one of my teachers, who just, I think she didn't like me. Most teachers didn't like me because I knew things more than they did. So
I love it. Yeah.
This bloody know-it-all, right? So, but it wasn't directed at me. Actually, there was another of my colleagues, and it was in anatomy lab. So we have a cadaver in front of us here. Okay. And so the girl was speaking, and she's very fast and was too much. Right. So and the teacher had no patience for it. And I literally saw a red jagged arrow come out of her head and shoot into the other woman's head. And I was like, whoa, did anyone else see that? And that's when I realized, we are powerful creatures, and we create these frequencies. And if you're receptive to them, and you like, so I'm very empathic. So that's what was happening when people were coming into my chair. I was really listening, and I was really imagining what it would be like in my body, and here I am walking away like, why do I have these pains now? Or why do I feel their emotions now? And these sorts of things. And we can relate to that. I think everyone's had some sort of experience where we can relate and like absorb some of that transference onto our bodies, like from an emotional or mental standpoint. So why not a physical one too, right? Because we have a field, they are intermingling. What is the signal coming from that person into your field now, descending into your physical, telling the body, giving information to the body? It could be saying, oh my gosh, we're sick. Oh my gosh, whatever has happened, we need to act now. And these people are on death's door, a lot of them, who have taken the shots. Could you imagine the alarm bells going off in your own body if you absorbed that and thought, we better prepare, because whatever that person has, we don't want it. So we better cleanse, we better, throw this off, or we better block.
I've just had someone ask, like, this is a point for empaths. I am too. I really can read people, always have been able to. Is there something you could suggest to protect empaths? I think a lot of time, I personally need a lot of time alone in nature. It's very grounding for me. But is there anything specifically you could suggest for those of us who are awake, aware, and can feel all these energies intensely? Or even
always try to ground, like what you said, try to connect with your breath. And like I've been doing a lot of festivals lately, and if I feel that surge where I'm getting overwhelmed or overstimulated, I just have to walk away. I just go and find a quiet place and just like settle myself and breathe, and maybe like get a tuning fork on me or something like that, where I can just, or take a shower. If I can take a shower, that's the best. For me, water has always been the best. If I can get into water or get water on me, or even splash my face, I find water just really balances me really quickly.
Me too. And I treasure my little hot little spot by the lake, because I don't think that keeps me so balanced swimming, and not in a pool, because that's got all that other toxins in it. But anyways, so now I wanted to just explore a little bit for some of the audience, the whole electromagnetic world. Like, it used to be that everyone would say we're, mechanical, chemical beings, right? We're just like a robot, and then you grease us with chemicals. But we're learning that we're very, very powerful, beautiful, God-infused, spiritual electromagnetic beings. And we're learning about that more and more, how we can tune ourselves. And people talk about raising your frequency, or even, I forget her name, Eileen, with the biotuning forks, that says it's not frequency, your vibration. Raise that. You don't want to be out of your body. You want to be in your body, but resonating positive, loving frequencies. And even, the work of letting go, the whole way we can raise our emotional frequency and let go of some of the grief and the pain and the sadness, get it out of our body. So I wanted to talk about just your overall belief around that, and then how we can help our bodies with things like medicinal mushrooms, or some of these ways we can sponge up the negative toxicities and release them from the body, particularly given the intensity of what we're going through right now. So I don't even know how to phrase that, but I'll leave it over to you. Yeah.
I really, someone told me about the term oscillation instead of raising your frequency or vibration, so that we're actually like lifting or raising our oscillation. We're fine tuning our oscillation. So we're in like a balanced harmonic. And I really, our language is going to change as we become clearer. So I know we struggle with how we're explaining these things. And like, if people are interested in learning more about this type of discussion, I recommend Dr. Richard Gerber's Vibrational Healing book. It was really pinnacle and important for me when I just started naturopathic college. I read it in my first year, and I'm very, very grateful to however that happened that I read it, because it really shaped me going forward in sort of understanding about health, and that we why do we even eat, why do we even take supplements, why do we do all the things we do, is because it actually breaks it down ultimately into a fine frequency, and that frequency informs our waters, and our waters are our batteries of our body. And in fact, there's different types of water inside of our bodies. There's the easy zone, the exclusion zone, hexagonally structured water, next to the bulk water that contains other substances and nutrients in it, and that runs like a battery inside of our system. And so when we can refine that and clean that, and the waters are clean, like you would ask me about metal cleanse, or if you where to start and that sort of thing, I didn't get to answer that. I would do like MMS, or chlorine dioxide solution, for example, because, and I have that in my course. I talk about the different protocols to use in my course, but that's like an easier way to do it. Like, work with magnesium and then work with that at least, if you need to start somewhere, because it actually denatures the metal. So metals are really electrically alive, and that's why they cause so many problems. And that's why the body has to store it and like really take the time to get out what it can, when resources are available. So like lead will be stored in the bones, for example, and it will slowly come out, but the cleanse is going after it. So it's a little more different of approach, but MMS will turn it like almost into rust. It'll oxidize it. And the oxidation, gets rid of the electrical charge.
Sorry, but one of the questions people had, before you forget, because this is so fascinating, is what about colloidal silvers and golds, because they're metals as well? Will that oxidize them as well? Because what would we expect if we're taking colloidal silver for things and gold, and then MMS? How will that interact? Yeah,
that's a really good question. Like colloidal silver, colloidal gold, I make colloidal silver. You might oxidize it, but here's the issue, is that there's different types of metals, and a lot of people don't have the chemistry background. Like, we actually have every single element inside of our bodies, and we need every single element inside of our bodies. People say, oh, Himalayan crystal salt, it's so bad for you. It has like, they found mercury, or they found whatever. It's like, yeah, you need lead and mercury actually, and little bits of arsenic, but in the proper format, in the natural format. And that those are all different aspects and helpful metabolite in moving residues that we have in our bodies that we need at all the different concentrations. So there's different doses, different concentrations, and different forms. And so the man-made chemical metals, the really damaging salts that they've created, those are inflammatory and reactive to the body. So it's really we really do have to get a little more chemistry knowledge. It's funny, they don't really teach it in school. They don't teach proper math. They don't teach chemistry. They don't teach about the body and the organ systems. They don't teach the interconnections like with the ancient knowledge, like Chinese medicine, right? And that these higher knowledges. So we're kind of lost in the dark, and we think everything, if mercury's bad, it's all bad, but it's a really good question. I don't totally have 100% answer on the MMS versus how it reacts with every single metal. That would be something you'd have to just look into. Like, if you look up colloidal silver, which is a colloidal suspension in water. So it's like basically ionic in that format. It's not a salt of silver. So how does MMS react with the silver salt, which you don't want, versus the ionic silver in the body? And I would say, just from my chemistry background, they're very different responses, because the MMS oxidizes the salts or the compounds and doesn't really touch the elementals, because it just doesn't have the chemistry contact for that.
Oh, okay. That's really good. That's powerful, sir. And I didn't mean to interject. That's incredible and information. I didn't want to forget that because there's so much.
Mm-hmm.
So on this whole, I mean, obviously we're in the dark ages in a way. Again, people don't realize it. They think that we're so advanced, but we've lost the basic knowledge of what is humanity, what is a human being. And certainly we've completely lost our spiritual connection. People talk about how do you open, your chakras, your third eye, obviously breath work, meditation, pure diet, and whole foods, all this stuff, and even service outside of yourself. I think part of our whole journey is getting outside of our sort of selfish ego-based living. And that will manifest throughout our body as we start to come alive. I think I've found as I'm serving my community more and more, I feel stronger and healthier. And really my inner power, my strength, I feel like really like just so alive. So I think we're learning to change the way we live, focusing outside of a selfish pursuit of material objects into really spiritual journey. And it doesn't mean that you live as a bum. You could be quite well off, but service to others as well. But being electromagnetic, we are open to other frequencies. So I did want to take this time to talk about what these evil, whatever you want to call them, cabal, are doing with directed energy weapons, because they are not living in the dark ages. They have advanced weaponry. They know about the human body. They know about human consciousness and how we are all connected in our connection to God, and they are warring against God. It's obvious. What's your take on what's happening in Maui? I think a lot of people would be interested with your deep knowledge of electromagnetism. Do you think directed energy weapons are real? What's your take on what happened? Because we're seeing like heavy metals melted, and then all of these horrific things, and people were totally incinerated. So some people say that they've electrified Earth to create these horrific fires.
Yeah, well, they've worked hard at setting these scenarios up, right? They have the UN 2030 agenda. And most people know that this has been a long held plan. This is not new. This has been calculated. It's been organized. It runs through family lineages. They pass it down to their children. And they want to enslave they want to herd their cattle differently now. So we are their chattel or their cattle. That's how they see us. They don't see us as like beautiful living beings. They see us as beasts that they can do at will with. And now they have enough technology refined that they have robotics and things that they think they need. So they don't need the population to be where it's at, which is not overpopulated. There is no climate change.
No.
Climate change is all their structure. This is all to, you're right. They know our psychology. So they know that we're loving people and that we want to do what's best. And we want to love nature and love the earth and love people. So they actually manipulate that in us to virtue signal to get their job done for them. And it's really as evil as it gets, like to manipulate somebody innocent into actually doing the devil's work, if you will, like evil, thinking they're doing good, because that evil's always cloaked in goodness. And so they've had these weapons for a very long time, nothing new, already advertised. I think there was even like a TV show about it and stuff. It's already been happening. They already did it in California twice. They've done it in Greece. They've probably done it in other places we're not even getting news about. And what they're trying to do is fake climate change, make it like, and don't you find it obvious? They're like, all of a sudden, just after COVID, all of these natural disasters are happening all at once. Like,
playbook.
That's weird. So suddenly climate change just decided to like put the amp up to 11. Like, no, their next page on the book is this. So
absolutely. And Governor Green had already signed up Hawaii to be the first smart island driven by Microsoft AI technology. If you don't think it's an AI invasion, then think again. But yeah, I mean, it's such a tragedy, and I hope it's waking up the whole state of Hawaii. I'm not, even though I'm pursuing a political path to the best of my knowledge, I do think we need to change things in every structure, knock them down, and wake people up from within. But I think this has been a horrific and tragic wake-up call. I think it's like people are calling it 9/11 2.0, because so many children were just sacrificed to these hateful people, and incinerated, left in school.
Well, actually, those children were trafficked. They don't waste a good opportunity. Those children were probably trafficked by Oprah, who lives there and has most of the land on the island. So if you want to find the children, just go to her holdings and dig deep. It's probably underground. And they're probably going to use them for breeding centers. Like, I don't think people understand how devilish these creatures are, that they use us to breed their own, to breed babies that they ingest and drink their blood and do ritual with. So I don't think I think there are a lot of children who died, obviously, with their families, but the ones that were at home, that was all a setup to make sure the children went home while the parents were at work alone. That's a perfect way to traffic a bunch of children into your breeding centers, and Oprah's at the head of it. So people, if you want to kind of unearth the demons, just go right there. They're all in Hollywood. That's who these people are, and so we have to stop celebrating them and and call and get out the gallows and frickin' this is I posted a meme yesterday. It was like, the only reason this is happening again is because we didn't hang them the first time, so it's like there's no mercy for this situation.
It's so despicable and disgusting and horrific. Yeah, most people can't even take it in. We know about the horrific things going on, particularly with the children, and that's why it's a call out to people. They get so scared that they get paralyzed, but if people speak out and do something, and doing something is just, it doesn't take much for us to stop this. It's just for years and decades and centuries, people had been locked into the fear frequency, which is what they do deliberately, because they don't want us to know how powerful we are. And they have been fucking with our frequencies. And when you are living in fear and doing things in fear, you're basically harming yourself. You're not protecting yourself at all. Stepping into courage is that point where you shift up your frequency and you can start. And once you're resonating love, it's pretty hard to take you out. I mean, it's pretty hard. You are so healthy. Your body is so healthy when you are living in love. So I just wanted to say that to people, because it's really the full matrix. You're not protecting yourself. When you're living in fear, you're just killing yourself. And it's just it's not sustainable. But I did want to talk about mind control as well briefly, because we're talking about frequency a lot, and it really comes down to that. And I've listened to, I forget her name already, but she's so powerful. What's her name? Deborah Tavares. She did a podcast about the mind control and how they can target specific frequencies, particularly if you signed up for ancestry.com, is what she says. So I just wanted your take on that. This whole genetic DNA thing, they've got your DNA, then they can target with whatever HARP or whatever it is, they can target you specifically and give you symptoms. Can you explain that? What's your take on that? Because people, we don't know what's going on. Who can claim that they know everything? What do you think about that?
Okay, there's an important aspect to always remember about whatever you think anybody else can do to you. And one of the golden rules of this place, a law of this place, is about free will. And we do have it. And so this is why they go to such extremes to trick us, to try to get our consent, to try to get us to contract with them, is because they actually need our consent to do anything to us. So that's our power and our knowledge. And that means whatever, even if they took your DNA, and we know I have a Rife machine, you have a Rife machine, you can put your DNA in the Rife machine and send a frequency to someone, across the plane. Right. So you can, they can take that DNA that you contracted to give to Ancestry and now do it to you because you agreed to it. That's the only reason they could do it. So what you have to do is say, I made a mistake. right?
Mm-hmm.
So one of the things I've been studying is equity law, and a lot of it has to do with atonement or rescission, where you're like, I apologize, I played in your sandbox and I shouldn't have, and I made a mistake, and now forgive me of my sin, and I will remove myself from this contract. And now they've got nothing. They can't do anything to you. And that's on our way to sovereignty. And we'll learn that as we go. So as you said, don't go into the fear or anything. You're actually in control, and they've done and tried to do everything they can to trick you into thinking they're more sophisticated. They have all the answers. They've got you wrapped up. You're doomed. They're going to just shoot a dew weapon at you while you're walking. You got to wear a blue hat or you're going to freaking be zapped or whatever, you know?
It's like that. Yeah, everyone's buying blue clothes.
And that's the frequency 666. So see the double cross there? So the double cross is, now, okay, well, we're going to do this particular shade of blue because that's a frequency of, or whatever their code of 666 is. Ha ha ha, these idiots are going to go and do that now, right? And it's like, no, it doesn't matter, because your frequency is what matters. Not like you're trying to cower over something to hide from them. No, they are not permitted to do this. And the more you stand in your power and do that, the more afraid they are, and they run and hide. And, you know, I've experienced this throughout my life of being challenged with all kinds of agencies and people trying to stop me what I'm doing. And I just stand up with a loving heart in truth, and not aggression.
Yes.
You don't, like, I'm not saying that aggression is not needed. I do think needs to die, but I mean, like, the way that we're energetically engaging with with these energies and pingbacks is we're trying to get to mastery. We're working on mastery. And if we can look at it from like even the higher perspective, from a God perspective, why would God even be involved in any of this stuff? Because that's not what God is really, right? But why would this be allowed? And the only answer I ever get when I ask this question is because we are meant to master. We are playing this role to figure things out and learn about our power in a very structured way. And so all of these suppressions and you know, when you tell the child no and they want to rebel, right?
Yes.
We're like learning, we're growing through our adolescence into spiritual adulthood. And that means, you know, self-mastery, self-control, and also coming from the right energy when we address these concerns and try to remember who we are.
I couldn't agree with you more. I see it as self-mastery as well. And it's like I used to train in martial arts as well as gymnastics when I was younger. And you practice over and over again until you get perfection. And I see some of the same things coming at me. They are immense challenges, but when I step into my full sovereign power, I see them as a good challenge to perfect my self-mastery. And, you know, these are hateful people doing hateful things, but it doesn't bother me in the way it used to at all. So now I'm just perfecting the way I respond, the way I interact to do my part. So I love that you said that about the whole consent as well, which is why they need you to sign something before you get injected. You have to look at everything. Even I did many years ago. I did send something for a spit sample to ancestry.com, but I withdrew that consent. You know, within the year, I was like, "Oh my God, what am I doing?" So you can also withdraw consent. You've mentioned two important things. If someone has made a mistake, God knows we will make mistakes. There's nothing wrong with mistakes, and that's what I want to tell people as well, because we're too eager to cancel each other, which is not the way we were built to live. And I say that even within the freedom community, they're controlled opposition. I'm canceling you because I didn't like what you said. We have to be conscious of not falling into that trap either, and having a loving heart, because people are triggered and we're getting so much at us that it's lifting up certain things, almost like a emotional detoxification, I feel. And so you have to work with someone who's detoxifying, and maybe they're not a narcissist, or maybe they're not, you know, whatever label you want to give them. Maybe they're just all of their traumas are coming up to release. And this is just a phase in their own personal detoxification. So I think it's a shame if we give up on certain people in our lives too soon, because we are called to love and not to just keep cancel culturing. And that's what the enemy wants, really. If you look at it in simple terms, the devil, or whatever you want, this negative force, they want to divide us, and they want us to live in fear. So the simple opposites are unite and love. And I think that's a really simple way to proceed in life, and not always easy, but simple. So maybe to end up, would you show us your website? I mean, we've covered so many interesting topics. Maybe as you're going on it, you could talk about your mushrooms, medicinal mushrooms, or
Oh yeah.
for a detox for people, and anything else you can offer. Is you have given us a lot of simple solutions, your courses, but things that people can do to ground, emotionally and spiritually.
Yeah. Well, I've been working on this since I graduated, basically,
Wow.
in 2008. This has been my trajectory. I
I
started,
love it.
I started focusing on mom and baby. And then when I found out about DMSO and wrote a book, then I expanded what I was designed. So I designed skincare, and I have loads and loads of very successful remedies, because I realized people were poisoning themselves with like their deodorant and their toothpaste. And I
Oh,
wanted
yeah.
things that, were very effective. So that's actually in a few places. So here I have my shops. You could see all the different things I have in my shop.
Oh, wow. And
So
and
like,
and are you affected by Bill C-47 at all with what you're selling? I mean, because it's a horrific, again, overreach for supplements.
okay, so what people have to remember about what they're trying to do is that they are in the public. So all you do is, so I'm in a PMA, so I'm a private membership association. So to go to my websites, this one and my dmso.store website,
Mm-hmm.
you have to be a member. So it's a membership or a penny or something. So you just sign
Oh,
up, make an
amazing.
agreement with me. So we're making a contract where we're saying, okay,
Oh,
here's the rule. Here are the rules of our exchange. Like if you come to me and say, hey, Amanda, you're a trained professional. Can you make me a skin cream for my eczema or something like that? I'll say, oh, sure. You know what? I actually make an eczema lotion specifically with DMSO that helps remove the toxins from under the skin. So I
wow.
will, I'll help you with that. No problem. That's private, right? That's private between parties. So what we're doing is we're taking that just on the bigger forum. So when you come to the store, you're going, oh, hey, I'm agreeing to like be responsible with these products and learn about them and not hurt myself with them or not be irresponsible with them as an adult. And
Wow.
then that because that's really what the law should be there for, right? The law should be
Yes.
for, you're not scamming someone, you're not selling them crap, you're not
Mm-hmm.
poisoning them, you're not trying to do harm or just steal from them, right? You're trying to be with integrity. So as long as you're standing in that space, you're in a good place, right?
Yeah, that's
Um,
such an important thing you've said, and I'm definitely going to sign up because I really I love your products. I've tried some of them. I've read your book. I've tried your DMSO, and you did mention, I'm just going to say for the audience, anyone who took a PCR test, ask Amanda more. She's a thousand times more knowledgeable, but little DMSO in the sinus passage where you took it might help to detoxify if they did put a little graphene or whatever up there into the nasal cavity. So yeah, but that's fantastic. What about your courses?
Yeah, I just want to say there, it's generally the ethylene oxide that's causing the irritation and the problems. There's not really
Okay.
like too much evidence of the graphene oxide being in super high doses. Like I think a lot of it's gone into rumor and conjecture, and even the whole idea of mRNA like affecting us. If you
Yeah,
look at the
that
end of
seems like
COVID
a
series,
scam. Yeah.
yeah, like the end of COVID series should run free again. I can't remember when, but it should be this month. So I really suggest if people miss that series, there's like 90 lectures, that they watch that or at least find aspects, because there's no evidence of that this technology, this vaccine technology, is just really breaking mechanisms and poisoning the body and killing people. It's not really altering anybody significantly, because there's literally no can actually into the cell at whatsoever. There's no physical amount that it could happen.
Can
So
you
when you logically
say that
break it down,
again?
all of the ideas go away.
Okay. Could you just say
So
that
like
last bit
the
again?
idea, so there's literally not physically enough mRNA in the vial that could go first be absorbed by the blood, then go through a set of membranes, then go through into the nucleus. By the time you actually did that, you would not have any mRNA left to get into the actual center or the nucleus of the cell, like by their description. And Stefano Scoglia in the End of COVID series, I really suggest you watch that, because he literally broke it all down for you, like perfectly, that it's all hogwash. Like whatever technology they think they're giving us, it's nothing. It's like
Oh,
they're trying, poor things, right? But their
just the
technology
worst.
sucks.
Oh, and so on that topic, a lot, I can just hear people saying, what about like us becoming spike protein factories?
No, there's
Is
no
that
spike
a myth?
proteins. So
Yeah.
yeah, of course, there's
Is
zero
there,
spike protein.
you think there's nanotech though that's in there, like being injected in the vials, or you don't think that is either, or you don't think they're putting
So
nanotech?
they have the idea, right? They have the patents. They've created an interesting ideology, right? And that's what people are using to like explain what what they're trying to do, because they do want to make us as like the Internet of Things, right? They want to try to
Transhumanism.
they
Yeah.
do, but it's a pipe dream. They're
Yeah.
ignorant of the divine spirit. They're ignorant of God. They underestimate
Absolutely.
God. They've
Absolutely.
divorced themselves from that source, right? So they're tinkering with like tinker toys, literally, and thinking it's
Yes.
sophisticated. They got nothing. I swear, they have nothing. It's
Yeah. I
all
love
it's
that.
all our minds making it anything. Literally, they're using
Absolutely.
us. Yeah.
Okay. And Morgellons, you don't think that's real either, or?
No, I think what Morgellons is just a stage of fungal hyphae trying to push those metals right out through the skin because it's so bad. Those people are so metal toxic. They definitely need my metals course. This is the one
Okay.
here, heavy metal and parasite cleanse
Oh,
protocol.
I want to
Okay.
take that. Yeah.
If you got
Okay. And
Morgellons,
we'll,
this is what you need, because it's
okay.
literally like if you understand fungus, when it gets into the mold stage and then it gets into the hypha where it pushes they'll grow those long fibers.
Yes.
That's what's coming out of those people. They're literally like a mold creator
Wow.
of metal. It'll be shiny. And it's just like metals. It's like the body's genius is trying to get that crap out. And it will do it any way it possibly can with whatever mechanism it has available to it.
Now, detoxifying from molds, would you have a whole different protocol for that, or will be a lot of the same as the heavy metals and parasite cleanse?
Yeah, usually if someone is has got mold or has been mold exposed, you have to get to the source. So even with the metals, you want to remove sources before you even go ahead and try to detox, or it's kind of like a losing battle. So you have to really assess your home, and those exposures are just toxins because the mold is breaking down like drywall or some kind of toxin in the house, and then you're absorbing the toxins that from the breakdown of the mold, and the mold might go with you and go, oh, let's continue our work in this person's body, right? And so then they make secondary metabolites. So secondary metabolites are very irritating and cause all of those symptoms, the tiredness. Like it can be crazy. Some of this, like, it can literally make you crazy too. And also that can start to liberate things. So now you're liberating mercury in the brain that can give you Mad Hatter syndrome, right? So all these people, they're starting to break it. Literally, they're like the living dead. They're breaking everything down inside their bodies. And that's why when they take something like ivermectin or something that cleanses them really quick, they get instant relief and they think it's a miracle. But again, they're missing the point of why they were like that in the first place. And it's going to come back, or it's going to be still an issue for them in another way if they don't also get to root cause of why that was happening.
Let's tackle just quickly another question about mushrooms. And I know I differ than Dr. Robert O. Young on this. I really respect him. He's got a lot of good stuff. But again, you guys are professionals. You can disagree. But he's, there's this whole alkaline diet and mushrooms being so acidic and then being, fungus. I'm a absolute fan of mushrooms. So can you talk about mushrooms as like the whole fungus thing, and then medicinal mushrooms as a healing protocol from God? So I think God put all this on the earth for us.
Well, yeah, I mean, think about what mushrooms do in nature. Okay, they are saprophytes. They do take
Hmm.
break down things, but what if they're breaking down something awesome? So, say they're breaking down toxic crap. You don't want that one. That's probably not going to be like really great for you. What if they're breaking down nutrients in like a tree? Right? I have shug on my property, on my birch trees, the birch trees that are starting to age. They come in, they like heal a wound and sort of give longevity to the tree, but they have all these medicinal properties. They have all these gifts they can give us. So it's really
Hmm.
about what is the medicine now that they've taken from the trees or from whatever, even from poo. Like there's still
Yeah.
nutrients that they're getting, right? And we're trying to access those. So they have different properties on the body that are cleansing and
Hmm.
stimulatory. And then for the medicinal, sort of the psychedelic psilocybin based ones, which I do sell in my private store in microdosing, I encourage microdosing for healing the hippocampus and the frontal lobe. That's what they're really known for. I do
Hmm.
sell stacks protocols. So it's the one that has reishi and shaga and sort of like the magnesium vitamins sort of in it. So it's like a whole support synergistic blend. That those approaches are trying to heal nervous system tissue,
Hmm.
and there can be very, very helpful. Your body will see it almost like a bit of a toxin though as well. So you have to be aware that there's a specific dose like for you. And a lot of people are totally overdoing it with the mushrooms. They want psychedelic experiences, they want to know God, or they want to awaken some aspect of themselves. And I've seen this happening in our communities, and I would be very cautious because as much as that can be really fun or really enlightening, it can damage the gut. And so I have a lot of people doing high doses where they have chronic diarrhea, or they now have digestive problems from using high doses of mushrooms on a regular basis, and that can take some time to heal. So just to be aware of it, that can be like quote unquote a side effect from
Okay,
taking these super
fascinating.
doses. Yeah.
Wow, I could talk to you for hours. I'm definitely going to sign up for your membership and your courses. I recommend that everyone else does. Is there a message you could leave people with in terms of maybe hope or something where people are, if you've seen all this, a lot of people are so stressed out. I see them in my detox clinic as well. I do a lot of emotional talk just to connect with people because I find we need to start connecting with each other. It's very powerful to say, I love you. I say that often to my children. You never get tired of it. I'm always trying to find a loving response, even if someone's been unkind or cruel. And I find that really keeps me in a good place if I don't engage with, you can get angry. Obviously, I'm fiery as well. There's a place for being, passionate and angry too, especially with what they're doing to the kids. And sometimes that's okay too. What would you say to people, in terms of stepping into your power and becoming sovereign, growing up spiritually? I really believe we are graduating from being spiritual kids to being adults, some of us, and learning the lessons. That's why we're going through so many setbacks and challenges, and it's that mastery. So what would you say to finish up for people? And then again, how can they reach you if to be part of your community?
Yeah, I think it's perfectly loving for a parent to say to a child, go shower, you stink. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
Oh yeah.
or to say that's fire, that's hot, be aware,
Hmm.
right? And so when we look at other adults, we have to assess, are they in their child body inside of them, or are they in their adulthood? And you can see it in people where the way they stand in confidence, the way they speak, their cadence, the way that the topics they bring, whether they're watchers or good listeners, like the way that they've developed their skill sets, but most people are just like hurt children walking around in adult bodies, and they feel very lost and confused. And so that's why, like, one of the meditations I offer is inner child meditation. And I encourage, you just go look one up that you like and do this on a regular basis and tell your inner child that you're safe, you're protected, you're going to be the adult now. You've got this, I'm sorry. I'm please forgive me for abandoning you, for, letting you down. I'm going to do better, like these sorts of things, because it can really change the way that you come into challenges in your life, which will always be there. Like you're not going to not have challenges. I mean, I know everybody has this hedonistic idea that they just want, I don't know, lay on a beach all day and drink Mai Tais. I don't know, but that's not what we're here to do. We're here to face our challenges with the strength of our soul and our hearts, and to achieve some sort of mastery through this, so that we can have this preciousness and this wonderful living experience, because we are eternal. We're forever. You cannot die. And people are afraid of death. I would say that would be like a huge piece, is just to really acknowledge that we're eternal beings, that we have this, and that we're meant to overcome all of the challenges, because that's part of the game here. That's part of what we're meant to do. And it's okay to whatever is true for you in that moment, whatever you need to say to somebody else, and that you're really just wanting to get to authenticity as much as possible.
I
and
love
to not
that.
be afraid.
And it can be messy authenticity. So, and I say, don't just abandon a sister because she's called you and, something. Look at it, sit down, come from a place of love. I find when I meditate and I get out of my head into my heart, I have a whole different perspective on a lot of problems. I'm a lot more forgiving. Doesn't mean I'm weak about it. I will call things out for what they are, because we're learning to take responsibility for our bullshit, as well as helping others see their own so they can take responsibility. And that's a little bit painful and messy at times. But do you think we'll be able to transform the world in our lifetime and create a much more beautiful place? What's your final take on the timeline of ascension and what that means to you?
Well, the only way you're going to ever change the external projection is through the self. So you have every wherewithal within you to change, and it's all within the whole thing. You don't have to change one little thing on the external. If you do the inner work, it will change on its own. And so we don't have to make it so difficult. I think we've been doing make work projects for a really long time. and that's why it's gotten so chaotic. It's like a time of chaos is usually a good time, meaning we're going to get organized, right? So when you move house, what happens? Like everything's put away, and then now everything gets crazy because you're getting boxes out and everything. Oh, throw this away. I don't want that anymore. This is, so we're like moving house right now, and it's really, really mucky and messy. But that means we're coming into a new place with new exciting things and new paint on the walls and all this kind of stuff. And so we can look forward to that, because I remember back in 2012, like before 2012, I was totally like in the new age thing, and I didn't know, I wasn't aware enough of the filters I was using to like see what was happening. I had to work through all these filters. And so I was like, my calendar's ending, man. Like what's happening? Where are we going to ascend? Like what the hell? And I was like all speculating. And what I realized now is the mind calendar was accurate. The world did end in 2012, and but not materially, spiritually. And what's happening is now all of this change and upheaval and froth that has to happen in order for us to finally get rid of these real parasites and move into our memory and our true remembering of who we are, and become the sovereign, incredible adults, spiritually adult beings that we are meant to be. And that it will be a time of peace, and it will be a time of beauty, and we will have the things that we desire, our communities, our families, love and beautiful existence, that it can be ours, and it's meant to be ours. And we just have to do the work to get there, because it's earned through merit. And if you don't have any merit to offer, then you're going to go into the AI, like darker path. And like Dolores Cannon, used to say about the world splitting into two, and that there'll be those who will go into the shadow realm and those who'll be going into the light realm, or the realm of peace. And I sort of see where she was going with that, because it's a choice, inside of us. But it means discipline, it means work, and it means focus. And so and they're trying to make us broke, and they're trying to make us stressed, and they're all these games. So it's really a narrow path. And find your people, support your people, and just do your ultimate best every day, and God's grace will, shine upon you.
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much. And thank you for everything that you've been doing. I have so much to talk to you about. I'm looking forward to seeing and talking to you again at the next event. And thank you so much.
Thank you, Tish. I appreciate it. Appreciate what you're doing as well. Thank you.